Magical Vacation is a Japanese RPG that was initially released in the bygone year of 2001. Despite its age, the game and its sequel, Magical Star Sign, appear to have been gaining popularity as of late, probably thanks to some devilishly handsome salamander and no one else. You know, except for the many talented artists, wiki devs, and others from the Discord server that help me retain my sanity and sense in the community, but that's a topic for another day. Considering my last Magical Vacation guide was very useful to a lot of people, and some older guides have been lost to time or have been a little bit dated as of late, I've decided to take it upon myself to make more of these guides. The simple guide will come soon enough, so be patient on that. Today's guide is all about this one menu right here. It seems simple at first, but in Magical Vacation, you can select up to 13 starting elements. Well, 16 asterisks, I'll explain later. And I'll be covering the mechanics of each element, and why you may or may not want to start off with. Whether it's your first playthrough or your 27th playthrough, I intend this guide to be useful for everybody. So with that, let's go over the basics and figure out how these elements work. When it comes to the selectable elements, all of them are relatively similar. All the elements have 7 spells in total, with the same level to require each of them to get the highest power spell, this being level 18 in this case. 3 of these spells are about spirits in general, summoning 1 of the spirits of the chosen element, summoning 2 of them, and a spell that will remove the spirit that the element is strong against. No matter which element you pick, there will be 7 spirits aligned with the element to find throughout the game, at a cost, of course. Unlike in Magical Star Sign, there is no element-exclusive equipment to buff character traits, so I'm going to explain this entire thing by giving a brief overview of each element, detailing their strengths and weaknesses, and seeing how they could impact your strategy during a playthrough. Bosses and enemies will also be taken into account when it comes to determining the strong from the not as strong elements. So, without further delay, let's start explaining each element, starting with Fire is the default element in Magical Vacation, and it's a pretty good one to start off with. Although fire moves don't have any additional benefits when you're using the spell, it makes up it for having strong power in the early game. Your party options are going to be rather limited from the early game to the mid game, that being the light to the dark realm. But you starting off with fire means that you already have Curse in your party right before you take on the first dungeon, and you'll be able to double up on fire damage by having one character summon a fire spirit and another one using a fire spell to double that damage. Not to mention, Toasty spirits can be found pretty early on, all of them being available before even stepping foot in the Abyssal realm. However, they do require Ignis coins to gather, and you might need a lot of them. Fire also has a lot of good coverage when it comes to hitting one or multiple foes, and the best part is, Fire's weakness, the element called Ancient, is very scarce throughout the game, only appearing in a few select areas. When you do encounter them though, you already have a lemon to deal with them, or at least a full party to deal with them. So overall, Fire is a fantastic starting element for your first or even possibly next playthrough. Just don't expect to be doing anything much more clever than just burning your opponents alive. S tier. Wind, or Gusty, is an element that prioritizes speed more than anything else. Its moves also reflect that with the presence of the first buffing spell, Mach 9, which boosts speed of a party member. And when I say it boosts speed, I mean you're going first no matter what. And when you are going first in a game like this, it's a very useful spell to have. But that's where most of the positives end with Wind, however. Your Wind partner, Candy, isn't obtained until the very late game, so your overall damage with Wind is going to be very meager, unless you team up with a magic doll, which that's not really that optimal in my opinion. Most Wind spirits are either located in the mid or late game and require a ton of Ventus coins. And when you're scaled against all the other elements, Wind-based attacking spells tend to be very weak. You can hit all the foes with Cyclone, but it has very average damage for a move that costs 80 MP. No wonder the spirit is classified as a hard spirit. I personally use Wind for a playthrough, and while it can be useful for poison enemies in the mid and late game, you have to deal with it being countered by 3 whole bosses throughout the entire game. This is C tier. Poison, or Gloomy spirits, are very easy to have fun with. Poison is the first element to come equipped with the potential to inflict status ailments. Poison in this case is a very scary element to deal with, both for yourself and your enemies. Once your enemy is poisoned, they can't be cured, so it's a battle of endurance until you get your free victory. With this strategy, you don't even need to worry about wind or dark foes. While the hit rate of this poison thing is 20 to 40%, your chances are more likely than you think. It's almost a coin flip in some situations. The gloomy spirits are also really easy to recruit. All you need is unstun tails, and you're set. They can also be bought from any store without repercussions. Sure, most spirits can be found in the Dark Realm, so you'll be pretty weak in the early game, but that's not too much of a big deal. Same with recruiting Cabernet. Once you've reached the Abyssal Realm, you don't need 2 people with poison to make it work, unless you really want to poison your foe. And as for the moves themselves, they're pretty average in power, and you can hit for multiple targets, so poison is ideal for some fights, but for others, good luck trailing behind. Wind foes may not be as common, but again, wind bosses are pretty common, but poison foes are pretty plentiful, so you're going to be doing a lot of just the 1 damage if you run into them. But overall, poison is great, but requires a little bit of luck getting through some fights. A tier. The next element is beauty, and beauty is rather challenging to deal with. Every time you use a beauty spell, it has a chance to cause paralysis for a minimum of 3 turns to a maximum of 7 turns, which gives you time to set up spirits. That's pretty good. Cider is also found pretty early into the Dark Realm, so doubling up when you need to is nice. And getting the right amount of decor coins for the pretty spirits that appear in the mid-game location is also very manageable. Unless it denies you for having gummy worms. Okay, so these snobs not only require you to have no gummy worms in your bag, but if you pick up too many of them, they will threaten to leave your inventory forever. This one feature ruins team building for Stone and Insect, because those spirits require gummy worms to obtain, so it either makes you weaker to make Stone and Insect stronger, or it's the other way around. It's annoying. What's also annoying is in battle, you can only ever target 1 foe with your spell. Yeah, paralyzing multiple opponents can be broken, some people may say. You know, if Thunder didn't exist and already invalidate that theory. Oh, and you also only have 3 moves. Your last move is White Rose, which is an 80 MP cost status curing move, and it can also revive a fallen opponent. It's just nice if you're doing like a no items run, but most of the time you're gonna have a lot of status ailment tails and a bunch of wakey tails as well. Sure, Black Rose is pretty strong with its relatively decent cost, but it's really not worth it. Not to mention, poisoned foes are everywhere in the Dark and Abyssal Realm, so good luck dealing with that. At least it can beat Blade foes. Yeah, that deserves at least a D tier. Blade magic is extremely powerful. Like fire, it sacrifices gimmicks for pure power. 11 damage on a final move is gross. That is stronger than the final boss's signature move, by the way. Though, like the magic that you're using, it's a double-edged sword. You can only target the front row of enemies, which it isn't that bad half of the time with only 3 enemies in the front, but since you can't damage the back, you have to rely on your other party members or KO the front row for them to move forward. And if a blade foe is in front, well, that sucks. Looks like you're just gonna have to use a physical attack for that. Edgy spirits are also annoying to obtain. You need Gladius coins, but you also need to drop all your gummy frogs. At least if Cassus is in your party, he could steal them back, even if you can't pay the fee of Gladius coins. Most edgies are located after the Light Realm anyways, so it may suck in the very beginning, but it's more generous later on. If, in case you actually bring Cassus in your party, keep in mind that you're very limited when it comes to targeting the back row now. Sound bows are very uncommon for the most part, but most of the strong one will also be in the back row. So, L plus ratio. So overall, Blade is strong, but volatile. It's more or less B tier, but only because you don't need luck to make it strong. Sound is next, and it's fairly interesting when it comes to versatility. Sound's main gimmick is having the chance to lull a foe to sleep for upwards of 7 turns, but you'll wake him up if you hit him again sometimes. That means you have a better chance to set up spirits like with Beauty, but unlike Beauty, it has a 40% chance for 1 target and a 20% chance on all targets. You can also buff a team member's magic defense with Spirits March. Catchy spirits are also very generous to obtain. They require very little amounts of Vox coins, and with Arancia and the small ocarina found in Cold Honey Palace, you can cut that price in half. And speaking of Arantia, meeting up with her not only gets you half off on spirit cost, but she's also the second party member you attain throughout the story. So for most of the game, you'll be breezing right through. Grinding the Abyssal Realm is simple because most of the foes are stone mages. So you can enjoy easy levels for you and your team. And since your only weakness is blade magic, you could just chill in the back row. You're safe there. The only downside I can see is that sound is pretty weak overall, but when it comes to your low cost to your MP, so you don't really need to worry. Overall, sound is one of the better elements to start off with. It can carry runs with a little bit of luck. S tier. Stone is very simple to understand. It's defensive, and you can set up your party's defenses with floor right. Defense can be pretty nice, considering that most of the enemy's attacks are just physical attacks. But this is where things get a little tricky, because everything else about stone is very annoying. Getting the Rocky Spirit requires you to collect gummy worms and a lot of blue frogs, which will get in the way from getting the Love Spirit. But you don't need to just get 1 or 2 gummy worms for the Rock Spirit to spawn. No, try 250, but if you're not a stone mage, you need 500 of them. And gummy worms disappear with multiple revisits. There's not a lot of them in the Light Realm, and most of the Rockies reside in the Dark Realm anyways, so you're going to be pretty weak overall to the early and mid game. That also is considering when Talc is your strongest move up until your 5th spell. Chocolate is also a tough member to keep on your party, because not only is he obtained late into the Dark Realm, he's also very slow, so he's going to get hurt quite a lot, and it might be tough to keep him safe. At least insect foes are more common than sound foes. So I guess that's a win? That's C tier. Insect is a strange element to talk about as well. Insect's main draw is having the chance to lower the foe's physical attack by 60% for upwards to 10 turns. And the strength of Insects actually rivals Blade, believe it or not. Though, like Blade and Beauty, it only targets one enemy, and the last spell only targets the front row. I could see that for Blade and even Beauty, but for Insects it makes no sense. Don't Insects usually attack in swarms? I mean, I'm not the bug expert here, this gremlin is. And speaking of this specific gremlin, Sesame is found midway through the Dark Realm, with a shockingly low magic level. Teaming up with him doesn't limit your attack in the front row, at least, and anti-spirits are also pretty generous to get. Well, once you get the magnifying glass at Cold Honey Palace, and yellow worms are also cheap at the store and don't affect the Love Spirit or the Beauty Spirit anyway, so you're golden. You should at least be able to get 5 or 6 once you enter the Abyssal Realm, and the one in the Abyssal Realm is literally right in front of the doorstep. The only problem is that stone enemies are very common and are attached to a whole dungeon and 2 bosses, one of them being the hardest in the early game. But after that, Insect is actually a pretty decent choice for a playthrough. Not great, but certainly not bad. B tier. The wood element is also fairly strong starting off. Firstly, wood cells have a chance of lowering the spirit/magic defense by 60%, essentially doubling your magic damage for a minimum of 6 turns to a maximum of 10 turns. Second, wood spells can target a single or 4 foes at a time, so it's both strong at 1v1s or 1v4s. Third is that Pistachio is actually the first party member you get, and he gets really strong by the end game, so teaming up with the goodest pupper around comes with a major payoff. Unless you hate dogs, then I hate you. Sorry, that came out as a little wrong. Fourth is that sticky spirits are also very easy to obtain. All you need to do is to collect pine cones, and just like bots on Twitter, they're everywhere and easy to spot. Sure, you need to at least pick up 200 of them to get all of them, if you're a wood mage, otherwise you need 300, but since they don't go away like frogs or worms, so you could just go back and forth for grinding pine cones. These boats are very plentiful as well, and insects can also be very scary, but at the same time can be manageable thanks to them lowering their spirit stat. And although starting damage is pretty weak, having a chance to double it makes it so much better. This is one of the easiest elements to start off with. S tier. But on the opposite end, we have Beast, the furriest element. Beast is extremely gimmicky. Like, let's take a look at some of these moves. Lion Power buffs physical attack, which can be useful against other Beast moves, Hawk Power does 4 damage and is the less risky move for the back row. Rhino Power only targets the front row for 6 damage. Oh, and a freaking Spirit Bomb, which costs everyone's collective magic points. It's an extremely high risk, high reward move, but the reward is kind of middling personally. I mean, you're sacrificing all your mana for just one move, and don't use it on a beast foe. You're not going to get much mileage out of it. At least furry spirits get the poison treatment of requiring tails to recruit, this time being deparalyzed tails, and just like poison, most of them are found in the dark realm, so you're very weak in the light realm. Olive is also obtained right when you enter the abyssal realm, and since beast folk are very plentiful there, it's not optimal to team up with her immediately. I mean, Beast isn't like Beauty levels of Unforgiving, but at least Beauty can get lucky most of the time. But honestly, Beast isn't that great in the grand scheme of things, even with the generous spirit cost. D tier. Water is cool, but also deadly in this game. Water's main draw is lowering the foe's defense with each spell, while also having the effect of hitting every enemy on the field. Yes, you heard that right, there's no single target for this one element. Although the percentage and the amount of time defenses are low is short, it more than makes up for it for actually dealing with other water and beast mage users, by lowering your defenses and by using physical attacks at least. Blueberry, the other water mage, is obtained right after the second dungeon, and water foes don't exist outside the dark realm, so that's also a pretty good thing. Rainy spirits also require a ton of aqua coins to recruit as well, so yeah, that doesn't really help water's case. But overall, water is simple, but very effective. But it also kind of falls off once you've reached the dark realm, but also kind of picks back up once you've reached the abyssal realm. You know, I'll just say it's B tier, just for hitting everybody. Thunder is next, and it's shockingly consistent. Thunder is like Beauty, where it has a chance to stun opponents with its spells. I should clarify this for new players. Beauty requires deparalyze tails, and Thunder requires unstun tails. Beauty to paralyze, Thunder unstun. Figure I mentioned that before you go out of your way wasting turns like me. Anyways, Thunder has a lower chance to stun foes and lasts for a shorter amount of time. When in return, it hits multiple enemies. So personally, where 6v6s can happen at any time, I say Thunder is way more useful to have here in my opinion. Lemon, my absolutely not biased favorite character in this game, can also be recruited right after you finish the second dungeon. Zappy spirits are also plentiful in the early and mid game, so you won't miss out on the potential power that Thunder may lack. Taunterous coins are also what you need to get them, and although it requires a lot of them, it more than makes up for appearing a lot more frequently. So overall, Thunder is great, but definitely the least useful of these easy starting element selections. At least you get to team up with Lemon if that's the case, which is A tier in my opinion. And finally, for our last selectable element is Ancient. Ancient can potentially lower the speed by 40 to 60%, which is great for the other Ancient mage, Latte. Latte is obtained in the light realm and is forced in your party for half of the dark realm. And since Latte is slow, that means that lowering the speed will be very useful for you and Latte and your party members. Ancient magic also has a lot of coverage from a single target to multi-target, at the cost of doing just the average damage threshold, as I like to call it. As stated previously, Ancient foes are very uncommon, but at the same time, you can say that about Thunder foes in the light and dark realms. Though, yeah, your damage does fall off a little in the abyssal realm. That's kind of something you have to keep in mind. But finally, Early Spirit requires a large amount of Aniqua coins to recruit. Fun fact, if you start off with Ancient and ignore the Love Spirits guy for collecting gummy frogs, you can leave the Light Realm with 4 Early Spirits in your possession right before the Dark Realm. That's really good! But combined with Ancient's average damage and Latte not being the fastest ally, unless you have a little bit of luck involved, Ancient is just very average. Definitely not bad, but a solid B tier at best. And that's for the 13 starting elements. Out of all of them, I'd easily recommend the S, A, or even B tier choices. C tier is manageable, but your playthrough will be much harder if you do something like that. It's Beauty and the Beast that you should be avoiding. Not the movie, the elements. I would probably watch a movie about these two elements. That doesn't say anything about me, shut up. And that is where the video would end. But by doing the absolute impossible and getting 100 friends into your amigo list, or by doing what I did and just, duplicating your save, you can receive the power of darkness. Dark is the most powerful and the most common element you'll find in Magical Vacation. Its ability is where if you use a dark spell sometimes, you'll have a 20% chance to drain magic points from your foe. It is very useful early on and is just kind of mean at later levels. Dark also benefits from hitting the main 13 elements for super effective damage, easily making light work for anything that stands in its way. Even light foes, which is Dark's main weakness, is still a very uncommon enemy and boss-wise. Dark's amazing battle qualities come with a very difficult drawbacks, though. Inkies are your main source of power, and although the first one is basically gifted to you, the other require you to collect a lot of gummy frogs. Specifically 1,000 of them. And to be more specific, that 1,000 one is located in the Dark bonus dungeon at the end of the game. Yeah, this dungeon is absolutely terrible. And then, even once you reach them, you actually have to fight the spirit before you recruit them. And usually the battles aren't that tough, but they're also all dark foes, meaning that you can get overwhelmed pretty easily. The final trouble area lies within the many Enigma encounters throughout the game. Because you're also dark, you're not going to be doing good damage to the enemies, but in return, you can also resist the Enigma's magic. Think about it as like two tanks staring each other down, but both can't move or shoot ammunition. But even with those drawbacks, Dark is still a very powerful and an easy S tier if you ignore all the potential shortcomings. Okay, but Light is a little weird here because it's mostly a post-game exclusive elements reserved for the rare enemies. And for the most part, you have to max out those magic gained from your friends, and then, yeah, I guess we'll count it. Light's main attribute is making foes blind, causing physical attacks to miss more often. Upwards to 50 to 90% of the time, which is busted. Light also has some very strong moves that can target any foe on the field, which is busted. Light also has the benefit of having no weaknesses and can absolutely annihilate any dark foe or enigma that stands in its way, which is busted. Light players can also be found by just waiting at an inn sometimes. If you don't have too many inkies in your inventory, they'll accept you at no cost, which, for the last time, is busted. Sure, one of the light spirits is located in the second post-game dungeon. Yes, there are two of them, and both of them are not great. But still, Light is God tier. Screw the list. It's SSS tier. It skips over SS tier. It's that powerful. Okay, although you can't technically be a love mage, I should at least touch on the element because it's vital to a playthrough, and I guess you're going to be using love magic sometimes if you gain like 50 of your friends for 5 each. It's weird. Love magic is purely for support. Apart from the one foe that has an attack, which is extremely rare and I don't even have footage of it, each healing spell costs all of your magic points though. And no, using an MP restoring move on your spell doesn't do anything. I tried. Twice. But although Love is not going to be killing anything anytime soon, it doesn't need to. Love also has the benefit of just wasting all your MP, so your magic level goes up faster. And so more levels mean more healing. Seriously, my save file for Petch, it's like level 90 Love. It's broken. Double Charity into Angel Shout just heals the team to full, and it's not even difficult to set up. Angel's Charge is also a good move for recovering MP as well, for yourself and your team. And Petch is also very easy to obtain, being recruited right as soon as you enter the second dungeon. The only downside to Love is the spirits themselves. Charities are, ironically, not given out for free. You gotta earn them by either doing the right thing or not collecting a single gummy frog for the rest of your time when you collected all 7 of them. Yeah, it's a pretty strict requirement. But other than that, Love is great. And you should share that love by going to that subscribe button and commenting on what you love about Magical Vacation, huh? Too much? It was cringe? Yeah, I know. Love is S tier. So, in conclusion, the elements of Magical Vacation can be quite tricky, but once you've gotten the pattern down, you'll be figuring them out as fast as you could say, I'm gonna play Magical Vacation for you, Dangerboatsouth. You are an awesome person. So let me know in the comment section if you want to know any more tips and tricks about Magical Vacation. And as always, this has been Dangerboatsouth, telling you to play Magical Vacation, or else I'm gonna force your parents to play the game. Yes, this is a threat. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.